Korean peninsula, with the rhetoric ramping up between the North and the US.
The era of strategic patience with the North Korean regime has failed. Many years, and it's failed. And frankly, that patience is over.
I give the highest honor to our respected great leader, Kim Jong-un, who made our country a powerful nuclear giant, having the most powerful intercontinental ballistic missile.
The United States is prepared to use the full range of our capabilities to defend ourselves and our allies. One of our capabilities lies with our considerable military forces. We will use them if we must.
Our respected leader, Kim Jong-un, said that the U.S. would be unhappy to witness North Korea's strategic power on its Independence Day and called for frequently sending big and small gift packages.
Well, when it comes to nuclear arms, North Korea and the US are far from equally matched. Pyongyang still doesn't have any missiles capable of sending warheads over considerable distances. The furthest they've ever managed is 930 kilometers, which is nowhere near the range of US warheads. So will the threats ever really amount to anything? We put that to Gregory Elick from the Korea Policy Institute.
Oh, I think it's a great deal exaggerated. First of all, the Hwasong-14 missile that it recently launched, there's some question whether or not that's even an ICBM. So Russian monitoring equipment had a very different result than what we're hearing United States officials are saying about the capability of the missile. So Russian officials are saying it's actually an intermediate missile. But even if you take the U.S. Position that it's an ICBM and then the range is only capable of hitting Alaska, and that's with apparently most likely an empty warhead. If you add the weight needed for a nuclear weapon, that would reduce the range further. But this is only a single test. Any kind of operational nuclear weapons program would require years of testing and multiple tests. The United States has nearly 7,000 nuclear warheads. North Korea, right now, probably no more than 10. It would be suicidal for North Korea to launch a nuclear first strike. And North Korea is quite explicit about the purpose of its program. It's a nuclear deterrent. Its intent is to ward off attack from the United States. There's a bit of a double standard here in that Washington has never complained about India, Israel, or Pakistan's ballistic missile testing. In fact, India conducted a ballistic missile test earlier this year, as did Pakistan. But only North Korea is singled out with UN sanctions forbidding it from doing ballistic missile testing. And I think the gist of Washington's concern is that it has friendly relations with other nations, whereas it has quite hostile relations with North Korea. The more Washington threatens North Korea or comes out with harsh rhetoric, the more it actually convinces North Korea of the need for a nuclear weapons program. The United States regularly conducts joint military exercises with South Korea. I think the last one involved more than 300,000 troops and ships and airplanes. And they're practicing the bombing and invasion of North Korea. And they also have commando exercises that practice what they call decapitation strikes, which in other words is the assassination of North Korean officials. But you can imagine if the reverse were true. Just imagine, say, if Russia were conducting joint exercises with Cuba, practicing the bombing of the United States and the invasion of the United States, and practicing commando operations to assassinate U.S. officials. The reaction of the United States would be utterly hysterical. But when the United States does the same thing against North Korea, it's seen as just normal or everyday business, no reason for North Korea to be concerned.
Well, the United States' latest joint military drills with South Korea included missiles being fired into the Sea of Japan. 2 B-1 strategic bombers also carried out live fire tests on a training range on the Korean peninsula. Fighter jets from South Korea and Japan also joined in, which, according to the US, was to demonstrate the commitment to defending allies. Well, the US has also conducted an intercept test in which a mock warhead was successfully destroyed. But that test cost American taxpayers almost $250 million. Another is planned in 2 months' time. We asked political commentator Lou Rockwell whether there might be other reasons the US is stepping up its efforts against North Korea.
Well, there's a lot of money at stake. Billions and billions and billions of dollars in new military contracts. The U.S., of course, also wants to continue to justify its occupation of South Korea, its occupation of Japan, its occupation of Guam, the presence of the 7th Fleet right up against China's shores. That's what's going on. So, of course, North Korea is, like any communist country, very poor. They're a very poor country. And they've poured, I'm sure they've I'm sure they poured vast resources that should have gone into people's lives and bellies and homes and so forth into this horrible military business. It's because they're terrified of being attacked.
Donald Trump has ratcheted up his rhetoric against the leader of North Korea after the regime's latest threat of a missile strike near a U.S. territory in the Asia region. The president sent the following warning to Kim Jong-un.
And if he utters one threat, or if he does anything with respect to Guam or any place else that's an American territory or an American ally, he will truly regret it, and he will regret it fast.
Trump tweeted the U.S. Army is locked and loaded against the secretive East Asian state. It's the latest in a long line of rhetoric from the American leader.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. The people that were questioning that statement, was it too tough? Maybe it wasn't tough enough. It's not a dare, it's a statement. Has nothing to do with dare. That's a statement.
While it's still a war of words for now, Western media report the Pentagon has plans for a preemptive strike on North Korea's nuclear facilities. But that's raising fears across the border in Seoul, as Ilya Petrenko explains.
So what if Mr. Trump goes for it and all these roughly 24 North Korean missile launch sites, testing grounds, and other facilities go boom? There is no way Kim Jong-un won't take revenge. What are they going to aim at?
If they invade North Korea's sovereignty and dignity, our army will launch the merciless ultra-precision strikes from the ground, air, sea, and underwater. So they'd better stop being reckless.
And even without the stuff Trump wants to wipe out, they got quite the arsenal to unleash hell over the 38th parallel. For decades, North Korea has been prepping artillery for that very moment. And now what they got loaded and ready to fire are 12,000 pieces of tube artillery and 2,300 units of multiple launch rocket artillery. The direction southward is clear. Where precisely will Kim point the crosshair? Here are two words for you to learn: counterforce and countervalue, targeting South Korean and possibly even U.S. military facilities near the demilitarized zone versus an attack to destroy economically critical infrastructure and to cause immense civilian casualties. I mean it when I say immense. Look at the range of North Korean artillery beyond the border. Millions of people live there, more than half of South Korea's population. Seoul, with roughly 10 million residents, Incheon, with almost 3 million, and Suwon, over 1 million. All these cities are in that zone. And some estimates say that 48 hours of Pyongyang's artillery rage may kill over 100,000 in and around Seoul alone. But what kind of specific North Korean threat have we been mostly hearing about from the folks on TV?
That dramatic escalation in tensions with North Korea. Overnight, the regime defied President Trump with a new threat against the U.S. territory of Guam.
Chilling new warning comes as the rogue nation threatens to strike Guam, home to thousands of U.S. service members.
This is a regime that's trying to not only establish its power, but demonstrate its power.
Everyone's playing the Count Kim's missile range game, though even if it is capable of reaching the U.S. island in the Pacific, how realistic is the threat of a successful launch, a launch that would dodge America's AMD?
So with the offensive and defensive systems that the United States has, both in the fleets and in the Air Force, I would think it's a very low risk that it would be successful, particularly in Guam.
If you are a U.S. citizen on the coast of Guam, no doubt you're still pretty stressed. But hey, say that to South Koreans from somewhere near Seoul. They'll be the first to get zapped if Mr. Trump pulls the trigger.
Range of our capabilities to defend ourselves and our allies. One of our capabilities lies with our considerable military forces. We will use them if we must.
Our respected leader, Kim Jong-un, said that the U.S. would be unhappy to witness North
Korean peninsula, with the rhetoric ramping up between the North and the U.S.
The era of strategic patience with the North Korean regime has failed. Many years, and it's failed.
They've ever managed is 930 kilometers, which is nowhere near the range of U.S. warheads. So will the threats ever really amount to anything? We put that to Gregory Elick from the Korea Policy Institute.
strategic power on its Independence Day and called for frequently sending big and small gift packages.
Well, when it comes to nuclear arms, North Korea and the US are far from equally matched. Pyongyang still doesn't have any missiles capable of sending warheads over considerable distances. The furthest...
Frankly, that patience is over.
I give the highest honor to our respected great leader, Kim Jong-un, who made our country a powerful nuclear giant, having the most powerful intercontinental ballistic missile.
The United States is prepared to use the full